Welcome back. You're watching Sunday edition here on KTN News. Now, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, is now facing fresh questions, tough questions over that 2.5 billion shillings ballot printing tender deal with the Dubai firm Al Ghurair. The National Super Alliance has threatened to go to court over the issue. Let's listen in to what the NASA presidential flag bearer Raila Odinga had to say about the issue.
Naona kila mara Ruto akirukaruka pale atio tutashinda atio nini jenasa wanaogopa sisi. Hapana, tukiongea juu ya tume ya uchaguzi na mambo ya ununuzi ya kura, yani kampuni ya kuchapisha kura, sisi tayari tuna ushahidi ya kutosha. Tuko na picha nyingine ya hiyo madirectors kule Dubai wakikaribisha Uhuru kwa karamu katika headquarters ya kampuni yao. Kwa hivyo Jubilee wasiseme wanakanusha atio hatujui hawa watu nini. Hapana, unajaribu kutufanya njama ya kuchapisha kura za ziada ya Jubilee kuiba kura. Tunakataa, sio?
Kenyans who may not be aware of the gross abuse of office by President Uhuru Kenyatta and his cohorts should know that the IEBC, the DCI and DPP are aware of the violations but are conveniently colluding to defraud citizens of free, fair and credible elections. We believe the IEBC does not require any prompting to penalize Uhuru Kenyatta for using the Government of Kenya delivery portal to advertise Jubilee messages under the guise of informing Kenyans about government programs. In any case, the government and the state of the Republic of Kenya are not on the ballot. It is Uhuru Kenyatta who is on the ballot.
So that is the latest bone of contention between the two sides of the political divide, but more importantly between the National Super Alliance, the opposition, and the IEBC. The IEBC maintains is defiant over the issue, saying it will go ahead with its calendar of events in the run-up to the elections. But Dismas, just how much problem is the IEBC in, and what gives? NASA says it will go to court 50 days to the elections today. Just how problematic is this situation?
Well, I actually don't see much of an issue. Kenyans are worried that it's 50 days to the election and we have not yet fully alive who is going to print the ballots. It's not a big issue. Right. Actually printing ballots is really not complicated. It's having the images, something which can be done in a week. But I think IEBC needs to come out very clearly and address concerns, not just raised by NASA, raised by anybody. And I'd like to give an example. You would frequent a restaurant and enjoy a meal because you trust that the people in the kitchen are adhering to the best practices. Now, IEBC needs to come out and tell us really the concerns being raised by NASA, are they valid, are they genuine? And if they're genuine, what are they doing to address the same? When Raila Odinga raised the issues, the chairman called for a meeting the following day and invited people to accompany IEBC for a trip to Dubai to look at the capacity. But in my understanding, the issue at contention is not about the capacity of the Dubai company to come up with the ballots. It's about the quality of the transaction. And in the quality of the transaction, we need to be assured that this thing was done in the best interest of Kenya. Like, for instance, IEBC needs to give us a cost analysis or a comparative analysis that when this organization did a ballot, say, for Zambia or other countries, what was the cost? And is that the Kenyan person getting value for the money? That's very important. And then they need also to confirm to us that in the unlikely event that they print excess ballots, the way Raila Odinga has indicated, those excess ballots are not going to be used to compromise our elections. And also the fact that the President Kenyatta or somebody in his family or somebody within Jubilee may have had a meeting with the Dubai-based company, I think that's neither here nor there. Because the President has been very active in meeting delegations either coming to Kenya or going to Dubai. So the fact that maybe he may have gone to Dubai and he met with the Chamber of Local and Commerce and the owner of that company was part of the delegation, that one really is immaterial. It doesn't matter. What we need to be told is that these people have been given the contract for the sole reason of printing ballots for an election in Kenya. That the fact that they've been given the contract is not going to compromise. And if there is reason that is going to compromise the quality of our election, in as much as they've signed the contract, whether it's valued at 2.5 billion or not, there's nothing wrong in terminating that contract and even paying them 2.5 billion, provided we secure our elections. Because if you have a compromised election, because you don't want to terminate a 2.5 billion contract and the country goes up in flames, whom are you going to blame? Would you say at that stage you are unable to pay 2.5 billion and now the country is up in flames? And there's this issue being brought about by Jubilee that we should now leave IEBC at peace to conduct an election. In my view, anybody who has got an issue around IEBC, you must make a lot of noise today and don't make noise after the elections, because after the elections, if the quality of the election has been compromised and the country is up in flames, there will be no opportunity to make noise.
All right, let's hear from Mutinda Kavemba. What is Jubilee's view of this? What are the issues being raised by NASA valid from where you sit?
Yeah, there are two ways of looking at it. And, we have an history of elections. There's a time it was very, very bad during the Mlolongo time. That was the worst it ever got in our history of elections. And we've been trying to make improvements. And this has been due to a lot of agitation through time. And looking at it that way, then you'd say probably that explains why the opposition is very jittery about the credibility of, because we are yet to get to a point that we no longer discuss the credibility of elections. That is still an issue, that whenever we do elections, and that is why even last time the matter ended up in the Supreme Court. So we are yet to get to a point that we are sure of the electoral process. And for that, I would have no problem with the opposition asking questions at every corner when they have a reason to do so. But the flip side of it is that we also have a culture of not accepting election results. And for you not to accept results, then you have to create some conducive environment for that. And if you've noted, the opposition has also been very consistent in pointing out what they perceive to be wrongdoings by the IEBC. Some probably that cannot pass the test. And it has got to a point that some people have been feeling like there is a deliberate attempt to discredit the IEBC in a way that by the time we get to the election, then whatever they come up with will already not. Those are the two ways of looking at it.
So we are coming to the issue itself.
Yes.
The fact that NASA have a problem, they think that this deal was not above board because some algorithm.
We need to separate the issues.
Yes,
now on that particular, let's separate. We are politicking.
Yes.
So it's important for us to look at what are the issues.
Okay.
The first thing to ask is whether by law the IEBC is allowed to procure using the method they did. That's the first. And I think by law, they are allowed. That is the first one. Then the second one is around what my fellow panelist Dismas has brought out, that there are allegations that the president met the owners of this company in State House in Nairobi and later in Dubai. And I don't need to belabor the point because I think I'm of the same opinion that that should not really be the issue, unless, of course, there is evidence that the subject of discussion in that meeting with the president was specifically the tender award of that ballot, unless there is that evidence. But just the president meeting, we know that part of his job, and that's why we have ambassadors all over, is to try and attract foreign direct investment to this country. And it is such businessmen of that caliber that he goes out to attract. And even when he goes out himself, he also carries high-profile business people from this country to go and look at business opportunities in other countries. So unless there is evidence that this meeting was specifically to discuss that, and I do not think there is any
so there's
issue
no
there.
conflict of
then
interest.
The other issue is this. You remember there was a case about a company called Osman, I think in the UK, where some people were convicted.
Yes, Smith and Osman.
From that side. And that issue really was not about the credibility of the election, if you followed it. It was about people making a kill, people making money out of the awarding the tender to that company. It had nothing to do with coming to compromise the end result of this election. No, it had everything to do with how much can we get. It was about deal cutting. I also would want to know whether whatever NASA is alleging happened here
right.
was something of that sort, that people have, as in Kenyans are really not getting value for money because this was not competitive and some people have cut deals. Those are the issues.
Hold that thought. Let's hear from NASA. NASA is saying it's possible to rig the election because of this, what's happening. What are NASA's issue with this?
I really was listening to my colleague very carefully. There are two things that we must underline. One is that an election must just not be fair, but it must also be seen to be fair. Number two, we are talking about an independent commission. There's a reason why IEBC is an independent commission. That to mean that when we are talking about any procurements, any businesses to be engaged by IEBC, this is a commission, first of all, that you should know is coming from a certain background. NASA's made noise about the previous commission. It went out. We have a new commission. We set certain benchmarks. Just the word independent is enough to create doubts by the fact that the president is engaging one of the players. The president is a player. It's like a judge. You remember Tunui's issue, where a judge is meeting parties who are going to come before him. So here we are talking about the president, who's one of the players, participating in procuring. Yes. I mean, that is what it will be. Secondly, when we are talking about the process being seen to be fair, what we actually saying is that these engagements is, even if you've just put it right, that even if the ballot papers, as Dismas has put it, are going to be printed and there are not going to be excesses, but as the Kenyans, creating doubt is enough for us to say, Al Ghurair, stay aside, let us have another. As you said, printing papers. Why don't we have any other body to print the papers? Why must it be this commission? And when you're talking about our expenditure, as Kenyans, we expect that this expenditure can be done to any other printing press and give us a fair position.
All right, so two issues
NASA,
for you,
that is what we are
free and fair
about.
Elections and the perception that it was free and fair.
Yes.
Do you think it's possible for Al Ghurair to compromise this election because of them being responsible for printing the ballots?
You know, what we are saying here is, and I underline the fact, that it is not just it being fair. The crucial element here, or principle of a constitutional principle, is that it must be seen. All these meetings, what we have seen are clips. We don't have the conversations. And remember, what the Constitution is saying, that they should, for a fair election, we must also not see improper influence. So what Kenyans are not being treated to is what were the conversations between the president and this company on 2 occasions.
All right, fair enough. Hesbon, what's your take on this?
I think the critical issue here is the question of credibility and fairness of the electoral process. And I think you want to go back to what the presidency entails, that the president is supposed to be, making the business environment in a country very, friendly, hospitable for any foreign investor. And to the extent that the president has to do that, he has to interact with a number of people, businessmen from all over the world, either in Kenya or outside the country. And therefore, I think the onus on me is not for Jubilee to respond, but it's for IEBC to demonstrate that the contact that the president had here in Kenya, and I think the Chamber of Commerce chairman has come out and pronounced himself clearly that there was no private meeting between the president and these guys. And to that extent, it was just a group that came to see the Chamber of Commerce in Kenya for business purposes. So IEBC is supposed to just make Kenyans perceive, just like Moshimo is saying, that they have to be seen to have conducted their business with this company above board, that there's nothing untoward in the way it was procured, and there was no influence of the president whatsoever. And I think for me, that is not something that needs to bring on board Jubilee. Jubilee doesn't have to come on board and explain that, even Spectre International can conduct the election, will still win, because that is now digressing. The issue is very simple. Just let us understand that this thing was done above board, that the extent to which the president was meeting these people is the way he met many other people who didn't even get this contract. And of course, IEBC has to go to an extent of telling us, even if there is mischief anywhere and they are not aware of it, how is their process, and how does the process that they have in place, from the point the ballot papers will be printed, delivered, the election, free, and fair.
All right. Now, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission insists that it will go ahead with its, plans as they had planned. They had planned a trip to Dubai to the Al Ghuraid printing farm, and they say they will continue to do that. That is on the 22nd of June, and they will be announcing the list of participants, the stakeholders in this process. Let's listen to what the chairman, Wafula Chebukati, has had to say as rebuttal for the accusations by the opposition.
So far, there's nothing. There's just mere allegations being peddled, and the contract has already been signed. The commission is only subject to the constitution and the law, and is not subject to direction or control by any person or authority.
The printing could be done by anyone, including the farms which belong to the NASA principles. We don't care. It was purely to open the door for the company called Pearl Media of South Africa. Members of Pearl Media, Dr. Sailesh and Mr. Ben Sachs, has been in the country 5 times to meet one of the principals of NASA as they were pursuing this specific contract.
So then that brings us to the next issue. What is the way forward in terms, as far as IEBC are concerned? Should they cancel this tender?
Well, Ben, you see the way the Deputy President spoke, that even Spec International can be given the contract, and Mr. Tuju, that this contract could be given to an NASA principal with a printing company. That's very condescending and unacceptable in a democracy. Because what the two gentlemen are doing is they're digressing, they're tiptoeing around the key issue. The key issue people are asking is the quality of this business. That is this business above board? And is there any reason as to why Kenyans must be worried? So you have wherever IBC comes under attack, wherever anybody raises issue,
right,
it's interesting that IBC doesn't take the first opportunity to give out information. It's normally State House coming out to give a position, or the Jubilee as a political party. One wonders then, what is the communication department at IBC doing? Because they're the ones who are supposed to be responding to this. The buck stops with them. So really, I find it to be very curious. And even IBC misses the point. Nobody has said that the Dubai-based company does not have capacity to print ballots. But we want to be told that Kenyans are going to get a good deal. And as Nick has indicated,
they need to do some explanation.
They need to do an explanation, and they need to do a nice PowerPoint. Come up with figures and tell us, right from the word go, this is the process that we followed to award these contracts. And then also address the fears, because the fear by NASA is these guys may print excess ballots, which will find their way to some ballot boxes. That's the thing we need to be assured. You can get a team to go all the way to Dubai and look at the capacity, but that in no way will guarantee the quality of this transaction. And what Chebukati is saying, that the deal has been signed, the train has left the station, there's no going back, I think also that's been condescending. Because we cannot afford to put the country at risk simply because a contract has been signed. What is 2.5 billion to a nation's stability? It's peanuts. And again,
2.5 is peanuts. In this country, we talk about...
No. Look at the nation's stability. Look at what happened in 2007.
True. You have a point.
And again, Ben, let me just clear the point. Initially, we were saying that part of the reason why we're in trouble is the National Assembly and the Senate, we've got a mediocre leadership. Now, this contract has got a direct relationship with the quality of people we are going to get at the National Assembly, at the Senate, at the presidency, and at the governor's mansions. We need to be sure that we get solid people, and a transaction like this does not put our lives in...
Mutinda,
yes,
whenever IEBC is attacked, why is it that State House and Jubilee are the ones that come out?
Thanks for coming in there, because that's why I wanted to come in. First, I want I don't speak for IBC, but I think it's only it's important for us to be fair to them. First, they can't stop politicians from saying whatever they want. We are in a political contest. NASA says what they are saying in public domain. Jubilee also responds in public domain. The truth of the matter is that IBC also responds. Now, for convenience, people want to wish away whatever responses IBC is giving, and they want to attach importance to what Jubilee is saying instead of listening to IBC. When issues to do with IBC have been raised, don't listen to Jubilee. Jubilee, of course, has to rebut because we are campaigning. And if they feel whatever these people said hurt their politics in a certain way, they will respond in a way to make sure that they level the field. That's what political competition is all about. But that does not mean that the IBC does not have a responsibility. They have, and you've seen clearly that they've come out to explain themselves. And he has said it is just allegations. personally, I would want to put myself in their shoes. And allegations in an election contest will be there up to the last time. If on the basis of just allegations, without any iota of evidence, then contracts are to be cancelled. At what point will we really then move on? Because if they do that, and then Jubilee also bring up issues, the thing is, they also have to get space to do their thing unless there is credible evidence to prove otherwise. And there's something that my fellow panelists here said that I want to differ with. It is really not for IEBC to come and explain themselves out of these allegations. They've done that. It is, the lawyers know that. The owners of proof is on the accuser. If there's anybody making allegations, then it should be them to come and show tangible evidence that they know what they are saying, that these were not just meetings of Chamber of Commerce that this Al Ghurair guy just happened to have been part of. No, these were meetings that, because you see the thing is, the president is not the procuring entity. Yeah. That's why I'm saying, unless there is evidence for a link that there was undue influence on the IEBC from the presidency to award to, then there is really no basis for IEBC to act.
What's your take?
Mixing so many issues and confusing all of us. Because I think the point is very clear that to the extent that there are allegations, it is the responsibility of IEBC to come out, not only to tell us that there is nothing in this, to explain this is what has been raised, this is the issue, and this is the extent to which there is a non-issue here. Because ultimately, this is not a court of law where the responsibility is on the plaintiff to explain how the accused is culpable. This is a court of public opinion. So IEBC must act in such a manner that we get to understand that, yes, there are allegations, but then this is a non-issue. It will not affect the credibility of the election. It will not make this election any less free and fair, that the election will still be free, fair, because it is for the public to perceive or to see that election as free and fair to the extent that anyone who comes with contrary information, the public has a lot of information to counter anything that they have.
And at what point does the independence of the Electoral Commission come in? At what point can they come and say, you know what, we just block out this political noise and do what we plan to do because we are an independent commission?
Ben, IEBC finds itself in a very interesting position. The moment you accept a position as a commission of IEBC, you must be prepared for public scrutiny. Even where you have your cup of tea after work, it's going to be subject to public scrutiny. And assuming what Mr. Raila Odinga said is accurate, that Achiloba was requested to go to the State House for a cup of tea. If you're invited to State House by President Kenyatta for a cup of tea, then he says, I'd like to introduce you to a certain gentleman. That alone speaks volume. You do not need to be a member of that procurement team for you to understand the subtle communication. And this one is an expert in communication. That one of the parties has invited you to State House and is introducing you to a potential supplier to the commission. That alone speaks volume. So the moment you get a position at IEBC, you must be prepared for these verbal attacks. And it's up to you to create some sort of an immunity. And how do you create this immunity? It's by being very open and by being very transparent. So like for me, what I would expect, instead of Chebukati saying the train has left the station, it should now give us details of how many people applied to be given these contracts as suppliers. What were the parameters they took into active consideration? That information should be made public. That's not a national security secret. It should be made public. And upon doing that, then people can look at Mr. Raila Odinga and say, you're now coming up with allegations which do not carry weight. But in the absence of Chebukati coming up clear with that information, we are going to believe Raila Odinga. And Raila Odinga has got a track record. Wherever he raises an issue, at the end of the day, chances are that is accurate. And we can talk about NYS, we can talk about Eurobond, we can talk about so many things. Right. And it's the duty of any player in Kenya today to cast aspersions on the integrity of IEBC. And it's up to IEBC to come and tell us, those are just allegations, this is the position. So nobody should say that IEBC, they come under attack every single day. Now let's leave them at peace. Let's wait for an election. No way, that one doesn't work.
Let me say this. Allow me say this. Article 1 of this constitution is at stake here. We are talking about the sovereignty of the people of Kenya. And this sovereignty is only handed over to elected members of this republic through a delegation. And that is done through an election process. So when Kenyans ask you that I want to give jobs or I want to delegate my sovereignty to somebody else,
right,
then we want to take it through the simple talk of it was just a procurement, that whoever specter, whoever can conduct the election, then we're actually setting mediocrity to Article 1 of this Constitution. So, as I will agree with my friend, of course, compared vis-a-vis, 2.5 billion is a lot of money, but here we are talking about the sanctity, the purity of the entire Constitution. That is why this process is critical. It's not just about Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. You've had even Okuru Okot. Why are we forgetting about such Kenyans who've also joined into the debate? And they're saying there are questions around this process.
Right.
So there's nothing wrong with Chebukati coming out and saying, no, look here, these are the reasons why we gave this company. But also, as Dismas and my colleagues have explained, is there any other company that can do this job?
Right.
Or it
All
must
right.
be this particular one.
All right, let's get a bottom line. We need to wind this up in the next 2 minutes. What's the way forward? Yes,
first, I wanted to say
tell us
this.
what's the way forward.
We are picking this story from, you see, the kind of information that is probably being asked for is available. That is why this thing first went to the Public Procurement Oversight Appeal Board. There are people who tendered and the same company had been given. And some people who are interested also went. And all that information is there for anyone who is interested. Then the courts, you remember, nullified, actually twice. And then IEBC got to a point that it said, now, because of time constraints, we have to do it. So all this information is there. There was competition. There was even infighting between the bidders. And that is why the thing ended up in court. It was not a citizen who took it to court or to the appeal board. It was one of the people who were also interested in the tender. So there is also that aspect. So what we are saying is, and we are not saying that the IEBC should not respond. In any case, it has been responsive. It has even offered to take delegations there just to address their concerns. The question is, should you cancel a tender on the basis of allegations? You do things on the basis of evidence, not of allegations. That's just the point we are parting here.
All right.
And nobody is saying that whatever is alleged to have happened cannot compromise. And that's why
Thank you,
I say if
Mutinda.
there is evidence that it happened,
Yes.
then there needs to be redress.
Hesbon, what's your way forward?
I think, the way forward is very simple. That for us to continue with the process as it is, because of other constraints, I think it's incumbent upon IEBC to allay the fears, because the critical issue here is that there was contact between the company and folks from Jubilee. So IEBC should investigate that, and that information is not in the public domain, like he's saying. What is in the public domain is the process. But this illegal contact, you know, alleged illegal
That
contact,
is the evidence
yes, that is what should be dug out,
All right.
investigated, and all the fears around this allayed.
Fair enough.
And we'll move on.
What's the way forward, Mr. Bukete?
As I've indicated, I will just join my colleagues. There's no point of re-emphasizing the point. It is very clear. What we don't know is the conversations and what was the package of the conversation between the president and this company. That is enough to shed doubt into this company. And if that is so, we can give this 2.5 billion to any other company where Kenyans can have confidence and we have a free, fair process come August.
This much.
Well, for me, I think Chebukati just needs to come out with the information and tell us that we set out this tender, these are the people who applied, these are the parameters, and also dismiss Mr. Raila Odinga's assertions that those are wild allegations. Then people will have peace of mind.
All right, that's where we leave it on this issue. Many thanks for joining us. It's 4 minutes past the hour. You're watching Sunday edition here on KTN News. When we return, we take a look at what has been said on the campaign trail, the National Super Alliance opposition focusing their energies on Mount Kenya East, that is Meru and Tharaka Nithi counties, and telling the people there to vote out the Jubilee administration because it has failed, according to NASA, to fulfill its promises to the region. On the other hand, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto and his Jubilee and their Jubilee contingent went to Kakamega, which has been considered as a National Super Alliance stronghold, telling people it is time to re-elect them. We'll take a look at what has been said off the campaign trail when we come back.